Have you ever really stopped to think about the scent of your favorite perfume? Or, hey, even just your laundry detergent? Well, behind that simple, beautiful smell, there's usually this incredible story of chemistry, environmental challenges, and sometimes just a spark of brilliant invention. Today, we're going to unpack how one specific fragrance, and the patent that totally perfected it, managed to solve a problem that was decades old. Let's dive in.
So, meet the star of our show today, Piper Runnel. If you've ever smelled something with that sweet, kind of cherry pie or almond-like scent, you've definitely smelled this. It's one of the most important synthetic fragrances on the planet. But for all its sweetness, the story of how we actually make it, it's been anything but simple. In fact, for a very, very long time, it was a total mess.
You see, for more than 100 years, chemists have been banging their heads against the wall trying to find the perfect recipe for Piperno. And it turns out pretty much every single method they came up with had some kind of serious flaw. It's this classic case of a beautiful product with a really messy history. This timeline really tells the story, doesn't it? It's just a century of problems. The first methods used a rare compound from pepper, which was just way too expensive. So then chemists switched to safrole, which comes from trees, but that led to deforestation. Later on, the methods got either ridiculously complicated or, like the most modern ones, used super hazardous chemicals that created a ton of pollution. It was always this frustrating trade-off between cost, complexity, and harming the environment.
Okay, let's just take one of those older methods as an example, the one that starts from something called P-cresol. Just look at this. It took 6 separate, distinct chemical reactions to get the final product. 6! In industrial chemistry, every single step adds cost, adds complexity, and adds a chance to create waste. This wasn't a process, it was a chemical maze.
So you're probably thinking, okay, but the modern methods must be better, right? Well, not really. Even the newer ways of doing things had major flaws. One route gave you very little product and created a ton of pollution. Another one used really expensive, toxic, and corrosive chemicals, and it pumped out nitrogen oxides, which are a major air pollutant. You were basically stuck choosing your poison, literally.
And here's the bottom line. The world loved this scent, it demanded it, but the industry was just struggling to keep up. The methods were way too complicated, super wasteful, and just not good enough for clean, large-scale production. The fragrance industry had this big, smelly problem on its hands, and it was desperately waiting for a breakthrough. And then that breakthrough finally came, and it wasn't some giant new factory or a rare new material. Nope. It came in the quiet, elegant language of a patent filing that laid out a brilliantly simple new recipe.
Here it is. This document. A Chinese patent. It honestly doesn't look like much, right? But inside its technical language is a recipe that completely changes the game for making Piper-Runnel.
Hey, remember that 6-step chemical maze we saw just a minute ago? Yeah, forget all that. The new patented method is basically this. Mix your stuff, heat it up, and collect your product. That's it. It collapses that entire complicated chain of reactions into a single, elegant step. This is that aha moment. It's the kind of beautiful simplification that chemists and engineers dream about.
So how does it work? Well, it starts with a simple base molecule, the Piper-Runnel ring, which is the core of the scent we want. Then you react it with a common industrial chemical called rhodopine. But the real secret sauce, the ingredient that makes it all happen in one go, is the catalyst, polyphosphoric acid. This just perfectly shows the heart of the invention, using the right combo of ingredients to turn a multi-step marathon into a single-step sprint.
All right, so claiming an invention is simpler is one thing. But how does it actually stack up against the old methods when you put them head-to-head? Well, let's just say the difference is staggering.
The difference is, wow, it's night and day. Where the old methods had anywhere from 2 to 6 steps, the new one has just 1. Where the old ways created all this hard-to-treat waste and air pollution, this new method is low impact, and the wastewater is way easier to handle. And this is crucial. It's much easier to scale up for industrial production without all the dangerous chemicals of the past. It's a clean sweep. It wins on every single front.
Now think back to that crazy 6-step process from earlier. After all that work, its total yield was only about 50%. That means half of the material you started with was lost along the way, probably just turning into waste. That is a staggering amount of inefficiency.
And that right there gets to the absolute heart of this innovation. Yeah, a higher yield is great, but the real victory here is the sheer elegance and efficiency of the process. This is a perfect example of what we call green chemistry, redesigning a process from the ground up to be better for the planet and better for business.
So a better recipe for one little fragrance ingredient, why should we really care? Well, because this isn't just about one chemical. It's about a fundamental shift in how we approach manufacturing things. It is, quite literally, the scent of progress.
See, when you simplify a process this dramatically, the benefits just ripple outwards. First off, you get way less pollution. You get lower costs for the manufacturers, which can mean more stable prices for us. You make factory work safer by getting rid of those dangerous chemicals. And you put a globally important ingredient on a much more sustainable path for the future. And hey, you don't have to take my word for it. This is basically right from the patent zone abstract. The inventors knew exactly what they had accomplished. They solved the complexity problem, they solved the waste problem, and they created a process that was ready for the modern world. And that leaves us with a really fascinating thought to end on. We just looked at one fragrance. But what about the dyes in our clothes, or the plastics in our phones, or even the preservatives in our food? This story shows that even for a product that's been around for 100 years, one moment of brilliant simplification can change absolutely everything. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many other everyday products are just one clever patent away from being cleaner, safer, and better for all of us?